Lifting at the Culver City plant began in 1943. This structure covered 8 square acres and was the largest glued and laminated wood building in the world. With troop ship convoys effectively reducing the U-boat threat by 1944, the contract was reduced to just 1 airplane, and Henry Kaiser left the project. The remaining single airplane would be used for further testing of the large flying boat concept and was renamed the Hughes H-4 Hercules. More than 400 engineers and 650 highly skilled craftsmen spent literally millions of man-hours building the airplane using the newly discovered Duramold process. This involved using layers of birch strips treated with a special resin and then laminated and molded into shape using steam under high pressure, resulting in a lightweight yet extremely strong structure similar to composites today. Exterior surfaces were finished with 1 coat of wood filler and a layer of sealant. Then 2 coats of spar varnish were applied, followed by a final coat of aluminum varnish, giving the H-4 its beautiful brushed silver appearance. There were 14 1,000-gallon fuel tanks in the lower hull, leaving the wings hollow and giving the H-4 a 3,500-mile range, which was similar to other operational long-range flying boats of that era. We are looking forward from the tail in this view, and those balloon-like structures in the foreground are flotation devices for added safety. You can also see the massive control cables running from the cockpit all the way back to the tail. The H-4's innovative hydraulic system was necessary to boost forces on the flight controls of such a large aircraft. For every pound of pressure applied by the pilot to the yoke and rudder pedals, 120 pounds of force was sent to the flight control surfaces. Initially, only the flap and elevator hydraulic systems were installed, which played a pivotal role in the airplane's future, as we will see later in the program. Engines for the H-4 were the massive Pratt & Whitney R4360 Wasp Majors, a 28-cylinder, 3,000 horsepower engine, and there were 8 of them. After 2 years of preparation, 8 moving truck convoys were in place on the morning of June 14, 1946. Here we see the fuselage being rolled out of Building 15 and being moved up the hill on Lincoln Boulevard in Playa del Rey. Trucks carrying the wings, tail, engines, and wing floats soon followed. And what would be Marina del Rey today is at the upper left of this photo. On the right would be Playa Vista. Hundreds of trees had to be trimmed, although none were destroyed, and 2,300 utility poles had to have their wires disconnected and then quickly reconnected as the moving caravans made their way down the coast. State police escorts for traffic control and detours, and the entire move was accomplished in 5 days at a cost of $60,000. This photo shows the mammoth 220-foot-long fuselage moving slowly through Harbor City, and you can see the utility lineman on the power pole at the right. Now, this looks like an instruction sheet for a model airplane, but believe it or not, it's an official Hughes drawing from 1944 showing the basic assembly of the Hercules. And here you see it in the dry dock facility in Long Beach being assembled just like a model. The final assembly site was located at Pier E on Terminal Island in Long Beach, 28 miles south of Culver City. 3 dry docks were constructed, 1 large one for the fuselage and 2 smaller ones for each wing float. It took 300 workers 1 full year to complete. Here we see the airplane nearly finished in assembly. The engines are installed now. And notice at the top of the photo a control tower, which was operated by Hughes personnel. This photo shows Hughes in the center wearing his trademark fedora and 12 members of the 18-man flight crew. On Sunday morning, November 2nd, the dry docks were flooded and the aircraft slowly floated out from its graving dock for the very first time. Here's a view looking north into Long Beach Harbor. Well, here we see the Hercules floating on the water for the first time on that Sunday morning. Hughes was the only pilot on board, leaving no doubt as to who was flying the airplane and who would be at the control. This is a view of the massive flight engineers panel. And here we see Hughes wearing his booties over his shoes to not mark up the floor of the airplane. And he's talking to the radio man there on the left. And look at the size of this cockpit. This is quite a bit bigger than any airliner flying today. This is the passenger seating area on the upper deck. On board the H-4 that day was the flight crew, along with 6 newspaper reporters, 6 passengers, and 1 U.S. government observer. 31 people total, as the airplane's 8 engines were started and checked, and the massive flying boat majestically taxied out to the Long Beach outer harbor. A total of 4 taxi tests were conducted, 2 westbound and 2 eastbound, reaching speeds of 40, 50, 60, and 70 miles per hour, respectively. These were to effectively test the giant aircraft's seaworthiness, slow speed controllability, and handling characteristics in a crosswind. Now, this next sequence of photos is amazing. Look at the helicopter you see above. It's a 2-seat Bell 47B with a photographer in the left seat. You notice in this photo the helicopter is starting a left turn. Well, believe it or not, the photographer in that helicopter took this picture as the PT boat is turning toward the helicopter. The previous picture was taken from the boat. And about 8 to 10 seconds later, the helicopter is now banking. You can see the rotor blade at upper left. The Hercules is beginning a right turn back toward the city for its last run, and the PT boat is seen crossing astern of the flying boat. An amazing sequence. After the 4th test, which ended near the downtown Long Beach shoreline, 5 of the 6 press corps members left the H-4 in a motor launch to go ashore and file their stories, thinking that Hughes was done for the day and would not actually fly the airplane. KLAC reporter Jim McNamara stayed in the cockpit, however, and soon became a surprise eyewitness to history. In this photo, we see the aircraft turning westbound and back into the wind, and you can see the bow door being closed. Hughes prepares for one more high-speed run on the water, and that's the iconic Villa Riviera apartment building in the background, which is still part of the Long Beach skyline to this day.
It's 75, and I believe we are airborne. We are airborne, ladies and gentlemen. We were really up in the air. Oh, did you expect that? Certainly. I like to make surprises.
And the congressional naysayers were now silenced forever. Rampant speculation has swirled around this story for decades as to why Hughes did not climb higher and perform gentle maneuvers or even circle the city as he once announced. The answer was simple. Aside from not wanting to push his luck, the airplane's pitch axis, or up and down movement, were the only controls that were hydraulically boosted. It was also speculated that the flaps were far more effective in providing lift than Hughes expected, and he was actually surprised when the airplane bolted into the air. The Hercules covered a total distance of 1 mile and was airborne for about a minute. It was returned to its graving dock and temporary canvas hangar, never to fly again, after seeing daylight for all of 5.5 hours. Oddly enough, installation of the remainder of the aircraft's complex hydraulic system was completed in 1948. A more permanent rigid hangar was then constructed around the Hercules, and this was climate controlled, perfectly preserving the aircraft's originality for 33 years and keeping it flight ready should Hughes ever decide to fly it again, which obviously he didn't. After many years of declining health, Howard Hughes passed away in 1976. His own Summa Corporation maintained ownership of the Hercules and eventually donated it to the Aero Club of Southern California for preservation. In October 1980, the H-4 was removed from its terminal island cocoon and placed on land under cover for 2 years, while a large geodesic dome was built next to the city's RMS Queen Mary Hotel. The airplane was moved into the dome in September of 1982 and remained there on public display for more than 10 years. Economically viable as a tourist attraction. In 1992, the H-4 was purchased by the Evergreen Air Museum